Shut up and sit down.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening from wherever you're listening across the world. Welcome to another episode of Just Ball Things. With me today, as always, is the J-Man JBT. How are you, buddy?
We are Geelong.
We are Geelong, the greatest team of all. Obviously very happy with the AFL results over the weekend, with the grand final, the Super Bowl of the AFL next week. Very exciting times for your club. Yes, prayers up that Geelong can get the best of Richmond, because no one likes Richmond. They're I don't know an NFL equivalent, but they're the Collingwood of the AFL world, which is weird. Which is a weird sentiment, but yeah, no, it should be it should be great. That's what's happening in Australia. My name is Nick Busink, and mate, I did some yard work last week.
You did?
Yeah, I did. And I'm reaping the benefits now. I've got little seedlings of grass. I feel like a man. It's truly astounding what hard work and sweat and blood. You know, you got to fertilize with blood. It's a very very well known fact.
Secret ingredient.
But yeah, it's coming along. We might have a nice lawn in summer, and that's all you're going to hear me talking about, because I slaved away on it. And yeah, basketball's over. Let's talk lawn. You've
gone 26 going on 46 in the space of a week.
Yeah, I know. It's quite bad. Home ownership, man. I don't want to brag.
The home attack?
The home owner attack.
Oh.
All right. As always, you can contact us on Twitter at JBTNick or at the JManJBT. Links down there. We're also closely affiliated with OTG Basketball. They've got an awesome podcast network and news website. You can keep up to date with all things NBA. Make sure you give them a follow on Twitter at OTG Basketball. Despite the fact it is off season, there is still a lot of content going on there. We've got the draft coming up, off season trades, rumors, coaching. Essentially, everything that we can come to you in this podcast, much more comprehensive on OTG's site, otgbasketball.com. Facebook.com/justballthings. Give us a like and a follow there. And jbtpodcast@gmail.com. Send us an email, read them out on the show. We've got the means to show personal details, and we will give everything away. We will do it. All right, let's dive straight into this one, mate. The Busik-Munro scale. For those of you who are new, this is a JBT-created scale that sums up how likely things are to happen across the NBA. We scale it on alternative fact, Twitter fact, Wikipedia fact, or just a straight-up fact. Jackie boy,
yeah.
First one here. Daryl Morey's tenure in Houston should ultimately be viewed as a successful one. Obviously, Daryl Morey has stepped down as the GM of the Houston Rockets a couple of days ago now.
Yep.
Jackie boy, where you checking this one?
I mean, if you're a Rangs kind of dude, then this is an alternative fact.
Rangs.
But because we are not a Rangs podcast, we have more nuance to our opinions. This is a fact for me, Nick. He 13 years with the Houston Rockets, 77 trades, the second most in the NBA. Never had a losing season, so it was always above 500. Had the second best winning record over that time span, other than the San Antonio Spurs, and the longest active playoff streak in the NBA, 8 seasons in a row. You know, obviously after San Antonio didn't make it this year. So the Houston Rockets under Daryl Morey, they were a winning team, and they almost beat maybe the most talented, stacked team in the history of the game. If it had been, you know, one or two ball threes, the Chris Paul hamstring here or there. We spoke about that on pods 2 years ago now. It feels 3 years ago. Wow, we're somehow still recording now. Now with like these fancy things, we can all
that's right. Yeah, that's right.
But ultimately, Nick, it has to be a fact, because what Daryl Morey has done, you know, the trade for James Harden, just doing so many things and going all in. I think the job of a general manager is to try and win a championship and build a roster, build a culture that can get you there and on the precipice of that. For the 13 years that Daryl Morey was there, the Houston Rockets were championship contenders. If you are looking for the mold of what a modern GM should be, Daryl Morey is the prototype. So he is the gold standard. You know, If you're going the opposite route, it's like, you want to rebuild everything. It's the Sam Hinkie style of things. But if you're going for success, you're wanting to make trades, get rid of picks, and just go all in on winning. They did it this year with Russell Westbrook. Didn't necessarily work out. I honestly don't think the moves that were made this year were entirely under Daryl Morey's, let's say, his leadership and his decision-making. I think that it was certainly influence there from James Harden and or Tillman Furtada. Again, I said this on a previous podcast on The Outlet. I'm not calling him by his real name because I don't like him, and I don't call people by their real names that I don't like. So the breakfast oven dish is an owner that I don't like. Daryl Morey I do like, so I'm going to say his name correctly. So absolutely successful, Nick. I have no idea where the Houston Rockets go from here. Obviously, their previous VP of basketball operations is now leading the way. Who they're going to hire as a coach, God knows. It seems to me that it might be Jeff Van Gundy. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, to be honest, but we'll see how it all goes. I guess, what are your thoughts on Daryl Morey and his 13 years with the Houston Rockets?
It's a success. I mean, your view of success shouldn't be, ring or bust. I mean, as good as the Houston Rockets were, challenging the greatest regular season team of all time is something, other teams have their peaks at the same time. It's just some peaks are greater than others. That doesn't necessarily mean that Daryl Morey's was, unsuccessful. It's the same argument for like LeBron losing to those teams and losing in those finals. It doesn't mean that he wasn't successful making those finals and just ultimately came up short. The same sort of goes for Houston. It doesn't mean no rings doesn't mean that this wasn't a success. The trade for James Harden and what I believe should have been 3 MVPs for this man is an absolute, that's a revelation.
Home run.
You take a guy who was the third option and, 6th man of the year at OKC, and you turn him into the league's greatest offensive weapon. And obviously he didn't turn him into that, but to see the potential in James Harden to make those trades and giving, I think a lot has to be said, giving Mike D'Antoni the tools to succeed in a sense, not being that GM that it's overly, I guess that's overly hindering on a coach's master plan. So gave Mike D'Antoni a lot of freedom, which is very good. Obviously, the trades that he's made over his tenure have been very, very good. The Russell Westbrook one can look overly disfavorable because of how things ended, but COVID and a late injury to Russell Westbrook, I'm sort of attributing to that. It was good coming into the season. Obviously, he had that stretch that was amazing, and he was in MVP form. And the Rockets were flying with Russell Westbrook just flying to the hoop. They were a good team, and they were in the mix the whole time, and that is a lot more than a lot of teams get. And so ultimately, this is a fact for me. I think it's plain and simple. Your measure of success shouldn't just be rings.
Not at all. Nick, before we do move on to some coaching news, what do you think this means now for the direction of the Houston Rockets franchise overall? Do you think, I put out a poll on OTG Basketball's Twitter at OTG Basketball, sort of saying that, does the fact that Daryl Morey leaving now mean that there's an increased likelihood we see a Westbrook or Harden trade, a decreased likelihood, or nothing has changed? What do you think going forward? What is the direction of this franchise? They've got no picks. It seems to me that it's Russell Westbrook and Harden who take up 3/4 of a salary cap, and going forward, those contracts only get more inflated. Where do they go from here?
It's on the surface, it seems like a rebuild. You get rid of your coach that has, seen you through, seen you with the roster that you have, which is currently small ball. There's not a lot of coaches that could deal with that one. You get rid of a savvy GM that could potentially get you out of maybe some contracts, maybe getting some taller picks so that a coach can work with the players with what they've got. But then you get rid of that GM. It smells like a rebuild. It smells like a rebuild where there's smoke, there's fire. But what does a rebuild smell like? That's a good question. But I don't think it'll happen. like you said, they're sort of cornholed with their pick situation. They don't have much to rebuild on. What sort of trade packages can they get for Russell Westbrook? Obviously, his trade value is a little bit low right now. Is that 3 or is that a 0? I mean, a third round pick, yeah.
0.
Obviously, Harden is, people will pay, a lot of money and give up a lot for James Harden. And that's why I don't think they'll do it, because they're so stuck in their picks. And you'd rather have at least making the playoffs and maybe fizzling out first round even, depending on what a new coach can get from this small ball lineup, depending on what trades can be moved. But I would not pull the pin just yet. Not just yet. But it does certainly smell like a rebuild.
Yeah, that grenade's coming off real soon in my eyes. If it's Jeff Van Gundy, if it's Sam Cassell, if it's... I don't know who it's going to be. Obviously, I think that they're coaching-wise, there is going to be a change in at least philosophy somewhat. We know Mike D'Antoni is quite a player-driven sort of coach. He lets them sort of take the reins of things. They sort of lead the way in how they want to run things. Obviously, he does coach. He implements a system for them to succeed. It'll be interesting to see what version of James Harden we get next season. We've seen in the bubble, and probably ever since Mike D'Antoni was implemented and this heliocentric offense was just like, all right, Harden, you do everything. And whenever you're off the ball, you can just chill, my guy. You got to save your energy. Whereas now, if we see a Jeff Van Gundy, probably by the time this podcast is out, Jeff Van Gundy is probably going to be hired. Let's probably put it that way. It seems very, very likely. And news always happens after we record these podcasts.
That's right.
It's going to be an interesting year. I don't think that, because there are other teams that are getting better around the Houston Rockets. Dallas is only going to get better. Denver's only going to get better. The Houston Rockets, PJ Tucker's like 34, 35. Russell Westbrook is, I don't think, going to have... if you can get the best version out of Russell Westbrook, that sort of January to March range before the shutdown, you'd be salivating. And James Harden's obviously one of the 4 or 5 best players in the league, and he's always going to be around that sort of MVP range. It's just... I'm intrigued, Nick. I don't know. I think you're right. I don't think that they can blow it up just yet. But if they do, that is probably the highest point of trade value where you're going to get for James Harden. He's still one of the best players in the league, an MVP contender. And if it's, for Joel Embiid, which is what we've brought up in previous podcasts, or if it's for some picks to rebuild as well as some, inflated contracts, I don't know. I have no idea the direction, but Tillman Fertitta doesn't like to pay luxury tax. He doesn't like to pay inflated contracts. He said that, the deals that he's given to some of these guys aren't worthy and all those sort of things. So he's a penny pincher, and it's plain and simple. He was hanging out with Donnie T in the White House a couple of months ago and was asking for some cash, cash dollars. He wanted a personal stimulus package for some of his restaurants and stuff. So Mr. Fertitta might have to start cooking his own frittatas these days, because he needs to save a bit of cashola. He got a massive loan out, but it's going to be fascinating, Nick. But a team that's still going to be hanging around the precipice of contention is the Los Angeles Clippers. And Nick, if you want to play some of the background lowlights of the Los Angeles Clippers, and literally that's what I typed in when I was looking on YouTube. I'm like, Clippers lowlights, what's going to come up? And the first video that comes up is their series against Denver. So while we discuss the hiring of Ty Lue, Nick, Ty Lue is the ideal coach to lead the Clippers to a championship next season.
Well, I know a certain Skip Bayless thinks this is the case. He's been very vocal on Twitter, and I don't like giving the man shout outs. I think he'll be good. I think he'll be good with when you have the superstar talent that the Clippers have, but without the vocal sort of presence that was lacking in that team. I don't think Doc necessarily gave that team the the vocality that they needed. I think Ty Lue can do that. Obviously, Ty Lue commands quite a lot of respect and knows how to deal with the superstars, given what he did at Cleveland. Obviously, LeBron James helps a lot in those situations, but it's not like the Clippers are lacking in talent. So I have faith in Ty Lue, of course, and I don't know. Like it's we're not going to know until we actually see these guys on the court, see how they gel, see how they, we all touted the Clippers and with the, the great coach that Doc was, and we saw the Clippers of the previous season and how together they were. And then these new acquisitions can sort of muddy the waters a little bit. And we all thought that was going to, end with flying colors, and it doesn't always happen like that. I think Ty Lue is a good coach for the scenario, for sure. We'll just have to wait and see whether that eventuates, whether they can get past the... He'll have the inside knowledge on LeBron James, which will help. I think that is... that can't be understated, to see if their matchups are even more Clippers swayed now that they've got the sort of inside Ty Lue words. So, yeah. What do you think, Jackie boy?
I think that you're on the sort of right track, Nick, because he's done it before. We know that how he is as a coach taking over from a successful team to bring them championship contention and bring them what is ultimately the ultimate glory in the sport, and he's done that. He's done that and you replace LeBron James with Kawhi Leonard, you replace Kyrie Irving with Paul George. There's a lot of similarities in that sort of respect, but I think the dynamics in the locker room is something that is going to be challenging for him because Doc Rivers clearly couldn't handle it. Kawhi got preferential treatment. I'm assuming he probably got the similar, if not the same, preferential treatment in Toronto. But guys like Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry, Marcus Gasol, Serge Ibaka, these guys just didn't care. And they're just like, look, we understand this guy's a superstar, but Montrezl Harrell, Patrick Beverley, Lou Williams are like, why does this guy get to show up late to practices? Why does he get to fly on his own private jet or blah, 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 whatever else it is? I just think that there needs to be... I think the greater impetus is on the roster itself. Whether it's not offering. There's going to be an episode of The Outlet where we're chatting about some free agency and the top free agency acquisitions and the best free agents on the market. I think Montrezl Harrell needs to get out of Los Angeles for their sake. For his sake, get your money wherever else it is. I just don't think that he can close and be an important part of a playoff roster. Now, obviously, he wasn't the best version of himself in Orlando due to a lot of varying circumstances, including family issues and everything else, and the fact that he just wasn't fit either. And also Lou Williams, do you trade for him? Do you offer a trade package for him for a decent enough ball handler that can facilitate? I really don't know, but in that sort of respect, I think that I think he's going to be good. I think that Ty Lue is going to lead them to championship status, and it's going to be fascinating to see what he does that is different to Doc Rivers, whether there's any adjustments in that sort of respect.
I'm not sure that the need for a change of roster is all that important for the Clippers, unless it's something that Ty Lue can't fix. So, like completely differing personalities. If Ty Lue can't communicate to these guys as to common goals and greater achievements than the individual that seemed to happen under Doc. Everyone seemed to be playing for themselves rather than playing as a team, whereas you see the Lakers and it's a stark contrast to that. And so if Ty Lue can't communicate that, that's when trades need to happen. And if he can't get these guys on the same wavelength, which is exactly what he's hired for, then that's when moves need to happen. But they, for sure, have the quality and the skill. I don't think there's any doubt about that. If you can keep Montrez, if you can keep Lou Will, Patrick Beverley, and all of those role players, and you can get them working cohesively, then, I mean, it's obvious. It's obvious for me to say that if you can do this, whether or not he can, whether or not that's even possible with these sort of personalities, we'll wait and see. But that's the key. That's the key. It's not the fact that, we saw Montrez, playing quite badly in the bubble, and no doubt we did. We saw Paul George playing quite badly in the bubble. A uninterrupted season will help the Clippers for continuity, for all that. It was said to death. And yeah, I just think that they have the quality. They just need to realize it as a team, and that's what the coach is there for. That's his job.
That is literally his job. It's going to be a fascinating 2021 season and beyond for Ty Lue and the Clippers. But Nick, we'll move on to the opposing team in LA and this horrifically dumb take that we're going to speak about that Mo Spates brought up. LeBron's 4 titles aren't worth celebrating. Now, Nick, you were very angry when I told you this was going to be sort of like leading our podcast, so I pushed it down a little bit. Mo Spates was out on Twitter and clarified his comments and was saying that, why are we celebrating a guy winning 4 out of 10 when we used to celebrate Michael Jordan winning 3 in a row? Like, what's the point of celebrating it? And I'm just like, all right, clickbaity stuff that goes on podcasts. Thank you very much, Mr. Spates. But I'll let you ramble, Nick, because I know you're probably angry about this one. LeBron's 4 titles aren't worth celebrating. Where does it go?
I mean, I feel like a sigh is all I can do. I mean, we can see some highlights from LeBron James here over the course of the final series, and any title should be celebrated. I don't care whether you've lost 20 and you've won 1. Maybe that one is sweeter. It would be like, if I bring it to sort of tennis, I guess Andy Murray for a very long time was second best to Novak Djokovic and Federer and all of that, constantly making finals, constantly losing, and there was the sort of, can he make it? He wins a Grand Slam. I think he's won multiple Grand Slams now, I do believe. And each one, I mean, we're not going to knock him for the losses that he had. I mean, ultimately he overcame it and he won the greatest achievement in that sport, a Grand Slam. And there's no exception here. He's winning the greatest achievement that you can win as a team in basketball. Like, of course it should be celebrated. Whether you've gone there 10 times, that's another achievement in itself. And 6 losses, sure, disappointing. But 4 wins is 4 wins. And exactly. That's you've still won it. And a lot of people are putting a lot of weight into this specific title. Obviously the bubble was a massive hurdle to overcome. The Heat were they certainly weren't touted as the second best team in the or the best team in the East, for sure. But they certainly came out to play, and they weren't pushovers. 6 games. They're the only team to have pushed the Lakers to 6 games in the entire finals. Everything else was 5 games, if memory serves. My memory's
5
bad.
For Houston,
yeah.
5 for Denver.
That's what I mean. So the Lakers handled them very readily, and so I dismiss the argument that sort of puts the Heat as, I was only against the Heat. And it's like, the Heat made the conference. The Heat made the final off incredible play. They just bodied everyone in their road from hard work and sheer determination. It was tremendous. But I've forgotten where I've gone with this one. Yeah, LeBron James. Every title should be celebrated, no matter how seemingly big or small or unimportant. It's still the greatest achievement of that year in the basketball world.
Absolutely, and I don't like quantifying or putting subjective elements on, like, oh, this title is better or whatever. I get it. Like, we've probably done that. A lot of other podcasts and platforms have done that as well. But by the sheer nature, like you said, each championship, each finals run is a feat in itself. And, obviously there are going to be subjective biases along the way. People think that the fact that Michael Jordan did it 3 times in a row is amazing. And it is. But also getting to 10 of them, like you mentioned, Nick, is pretty damn insane. You can laud Michael Jordan as much as you want by not taking away or being a naysayer to the achievements that LeBron James has had. You can appreciate both of them. You can have it's fun to have the discussions and fine to have biases and go, I think MJ's better, but it doesn't mean you have to degrade the achievements of someone else to do that. And that's a discussion for life as well. You don't have to tear people down to lift other people up. I think that in saying that as well, LeBron's achievements for each final and winning each final are incredible, because a lot of the teams that he versed are better than the teams that, Kobe Bryant versed or Michael Jordan versed in Utah and Portland and all these teams. LeBron James has versed some of the greatest teams in the history of the sport. Obviously, the Golden State Warriors is the one that sort of sticks out. Those San Antonio teams were goddamn awesome. The baby OKC probably was maybe the easiest one that he made with the team on paper, and maybe this Miami Heat team is as well. But, don't tell Jimmy Butler that, or, we're not getting now our $20 big face coffee refund.
That's the thing. It's on paper, I guess. But this team, and this is what will lose to history. They will see a team with Jimmy Butler, and who knows where he's going to go with his career, with young Duncan Robinson, young Tyler Hero, a team that really did overachieve. But the fight that they gave the Lakers is going to be lost over the years, because they'll just see players on a court. They'll say, "Oh, LeBron James lost 2 games to this team," and it's so much. They're so much better than that. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I can see it now. In 5 years, people will be like, "Oh, that Miami team was whatever." But it shouldn't be dismissed, and I'm afraid of that happening.
Yeah, it's I just don't understand. It's that time of year where the comparisons happen, and they are fun discussions to have if they are done in good nature. And I think that we do that on this pod quite a bit. We do have our disagreements, but we all understand that we don't have to degrade someone else to go, all right, we know how good LeBron is. We know how good Michael Jordan is. We know how good Kobe Bryant, all these people are. We don't have to go, all right, well, this guy did this against that. He clearly doesn't deserve the same amount of credit that he does. So it's dumb from most mates, and I don't understand why he did it. And when he did clarify it himself as well, he didn't necessarily clarify himself. He just doubled down on it. But we'll continue, I guess, Nick, with some more dumb takes from Twitter, because that's essentially our podcast. Mm-hmm. From Mink Flow on Twitter, the Heat's Eastern Conference Finals trophy has more value than both of KD's rings.
I was talking about this with your brother, actually, talking about the LeBron v MJ thing, and he brought up the fact, I brought up the fact that, him moving to 3 different organizations and winning rings there is an achievement itself. You see, Ronaldo doing that across sport. Moving teams is quite a challenge, and then to lift that team to a championship is quite an achievement. I was sort of using that as a knock on, Kobe and Jordan staying in the same organization, the comforts of the same staff, the same facility, the same, even down to the same parking spot. These guys are so ingrained with routine that even something like that can be a big change for them. And so I was using that as a point of emphasis and saying, hey, that's really good. And KD did the same thing with the Golden State Warriors. He moved, and I don't discredit those rings. Because he sort of devalues those rings a little bit, because he moved to the Golden State Warriors, who were already a championship team, and then won again. I disagree with this. I disagree with this take that the Eastern Conference Finals trophy has more value than both of KD's rings, because KD was the best player on those teams. It's not like he went there and was 3rd best and then won a championship off the coattails of Steph and Clay or Draymond or whatever. He was the best player on that team. And, Steph had to take a lesser role to help facilitate that. And, immense props to Steph to be able to do that. But if you go to that team and become the best player on that team and still win a championship, that's your ring. That is your ring. I do not care. And so, at the end of the day, a championship ring has more value than a conference final championship, because who fucking cares?
New Jersey, mate. We've got Eastern Conference Finals, baby. I think the Washington Wizards do as well, don't they?
I think we do. It's our crowning achievement, or a division title. Couldn't care. Honestly, it is ludicrous. Because no one is out here thinking that, that is a runner-up award. If that is what you're boasting, that's coming second. And it literally is, because you didn't win the championship, so you did come second. And no one celebrates that. It's great, you get the champagne in the locker room because you're the best team in the East. Yeah. Doesn't matter. You win that last series, and you deservedly will go down in the annals of history. But to say that it's worth more because they worked harder for it, it was a harder road, they overachieved. Who cares? Because Jimmy Butler's not going to think that it's more important. The players on the Heat aren't going to leave that season thinking, you know what, it was okay. No, they were right there. They were right there. They were disappointing in Game 6. Obviously, the Lakers were incredible. They had a chance to get this to 7 games and really give themselves a shot. I think that whole team will still leave somewhat disappointed that they made it all the way to the finals, played as well as they did, and still only came up and lost in 6. You ask anyone who's taken an Eastern Conference or a Western Conference final and no championship, and they're not going to say, yeah, it was all right. No, everyone aims for the top. It's dumb. I mean, I hate this take. Alternative fact.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, obviously. But it's also funny because at the start of the podcast, we're talking about Daryl Morey, and it's just like, oh, well, ranks. He doesn't have any ranks. He's clearly not successful. But in this scheme in this topic in particular, it's clear because, like you mentioned, I'm not discrediting the road that Miami took to get to the finals. They knocked out the Milwaukee Bucks, who were clearly the favorites in the Eastern Conference. They knocked out a team in the Boston Celtics who were more favored than them as well. And Jimmy Butler elevated himself to another level. Bam Adebayo had one of maybe the best block in the history of the game. Second best block, to be honest. Second best block in the history of the game. And they were just awesome. Tyler Hero turned into Devin Booker 2.0. Again, I'm not saying that, but it was brought up on previous podcasts. So I'm not discrediting what Miami Heat did. But the person who came up with this is just ultimately discrediting what Kevin Durant did. And like you said, Nick, he elevated himself upon those championship rings. People were saying Kevin Durant's now the best player in the game.
Exactly.
Would he? And obviously, did he take an easier route? Yeah. But so did LeBron in teaming up with everyone in Miami. Would you? But
people do discredit LeBron for that. This is what I'm saying. People say that, his move to Miami was weak, and it's not really his championships because he had to move to a team. You couldn't bring it into Cleveland because that's what Kobe and MJ did. And I'm like, they were so lucky, so incredibly lucky to get drafted into their perfect situation. It is not...
Kobe demanded a trade, by the way.
But I hate the fact that people say, MJ made the organization what it is. And to an extent, 100% he did. Because he turned a small market team into a global megastar team. Like, no one's been able to do that. It was incredible. He was such a massive celebrity. But the front office was perfectly tailored. The coach was perfectly tailored for MJ. The team was perfectly tailored for MJ. Not a lot of teams can have that level of, I guess, it's... I don't want to call it luck because there is a level of savvy hiring from the Bulls front office to land the player, to land the coach, and everything falling into pieces like that. But sometimes it doesn't quite work out that way. Whether you're stuck with salary caps, whether you're stuck with previous relationships can help really dismiss other people from coming into your organization because he's my guy and you can get stuck in this rut, and then LeBron moving If LeBron had been drafted to Miami, it would have been no one would be talking about this, but it would just have been luck that Miami would have landed this and with the perfect coach, the perfect situation, and everything like that. So that's sort of what I'm getting at. You needed the best thing for LeBron James was to move, and that is evident in what he's able to do in his whole career. The Miami move taught him how to win, taught him how to work hard, taught him the work ethic that is required and, everything that's required to be the greatest, which is what he ultimately wanted to achieve. What could have Anthony Davis done if he had moved into the perfect situation earlier? What would Boogie Cousins have done if he had moved into the perfect situation earlier? Before injuries had completely screwed him. You can say all of these what ifs about so many players. And there is an element of luck. There is 100% an element of luck of where you land, who you're being mentored from, and how you're brought up in this league. Because if you're perfect early, then you have a very, very real chance of being in that sort of greatest conversation. Obviously, you need the skill to back it up, like a KD, like a LeBron James. But yeah, like when KD moved, won those rings, like you said, he was touted as being greater than LeBron James currently in the league. Like he had surpassed LeBron James as the greatest player in the league, which we now think is ludicrous. But Kevin Durant's been out for a year. We'll see what happens next year.
It will certainly will, Nick. And I think that player empowerment and player advocacy is looked down upon, which to me is just stupid. And obviously that's one of the defining points of LeBron's narrative in terms of his move to Miami. Without that, Kevin Durant doesn't move to Golden State. That doesn't happen. So I think that while we've certainly argued about it and weren't the biggest fans of it, at the end of the day, these guys deserve to get to play basketball where they want to play basketball. If you are the best at what you do, it's in any sport. You deserve to do it in whatever environment that you choose and see fit. Obviously, Lionel Messi might say something different to that, but in generally speaking, the best players just deserve to go, all right, I want to play here. I want to play here. I'll get paid to do this. I want to be surrounded by these teammates. I want to live in this situation. So, yeah, to discredit it is just, it's a fallacy. It's just dumb. And I mean, it's haters, and not to deride it to down to just like Twitter clickbait Twitterati, but it is to an extent. And I just think that, I mean, you can have some irrationality in the moment and heat in the moment, and that emotion is part of what makes sports so great. But also, you need to bring a level of objectivity to when you are bringing these weird and dumb opinions onto a platform that is as relevant and as social and as everlasting as social media. And we do it on podcasts. So, we've said many dumb things on this podcast and previous podcasts, the previous 150 whatever that we've done. But it's frustrating, I guess, Nick. And I agree with you. But we'll move forward and we'll move past that. And let's get to the MVP conversation. Now, the odds for this were brought forth by, I think it was sportsbetting.com. And Luka Doncic. Why did I say Doncic? Jesus Christ. The Don himself, sportsbetting.com, has Luka Doncic as the favorite for the MVP above Giannis, Steph Curry, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis, who are tied, and your boy James Harden. Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, Damian Lillard rounded out. Nick, is it too early? Luka Doncic's favoritism for MVP next season is premature. For those that think so, click on this video, Nicholas, and you will see the greatness of Luka Doncic for the past, whether it's the Orlando bubble and the season itself. He has been immense. But what are your thoughts? Do you think that it's a little bit early to crown a third-year player the MVP favorite?
It's not too early, but it is too early in this case. Like, it's not too early as a rule to say your third year can't be MVP, and he certainly has the skill and the caliber for that. I don't think the Mavericks are going to be good enough to warrant an MVP, which is one. I also, LeBron James and Anthony Davis are still in the league. Like, Giannis is still in the league. Could he go 3 in a row? I mean, who knows?
The narrative will be a bit tired for him. Voter
Yeah,
fatigue.
that's right. Yeah. Like, we'll see what happens with the Rockets this season. They might make a spectacular return to form. They may be a fighting force in the West. Yeah, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving coming into the league. Kyrie Irving was a vote for MVP 2 years ago, I think.
He's never been top 5.
No. As in, like, I saw a lot of picks for him, like, pre-season.
I mean,
when he had moved to Boston, I think people had put him in the MVP conversation.
I did an article pre-season last year or this year saying that he could be in with the shot.
There you go. Like,
again, happy to be
wrong.
wrong.
With these players, I just think it's a little early for the Mavs. Not so much for Luka, because Luka could be an MVP conversation. But if I'm looking at the West, I expect Utah to do like a lot better if we're doing like preseason things with the Clippers, with the Lakers, with it's
Denver.
going. Oh yeah, Denver. I forgot about Denver.
Denver.
I always forget about Denver.
You always do. I don't.
Could the Mavs finish top 4? it's going to be tough. It's going to be very tough, which will be like a tremendous achievement for them to have home court advantage in that first round. For a team that's sort of, been on the precipice the last few years, and obviously with Luka, that a lot of hope has sort of shone through. Is that enough for an MVP when you've potentially got Anthony Davis going crazy as potentially the 1 seed? You may see a lot more production from, Kawhi Leonard. You might see him playing a lot more games under Ty Lue. Who knows what's going to happen there? And then you've got the easy East. So you could have KD absolutely fucking monster the league. And let's not forget about the Warriors. Forgot about the Warriors as well. Like they're going to be in playoff. They're going to be in playoff contention next year. The West is going to be an interesting race for sure. But I do think it's a little bit premature. To be the favorite. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's so crazy as you do. So I think that
do you think the Mavs are going to be like a top 2 team next year?
No. So I was about to preface that with I agree that to be a true MVP contender, you generally have to be one of the 4 best teams in the league, whether it's the top 2 seed in the East or West, or have one of the 4 best records. Obviously Russell Westbrook bucked that trend because he did something historic in terms of statistical anomalies.
Incorrectly.
Yes,
we'll forget about that.
Yes, Nick. But in saying that, I think that the Mavs have a chance to be a top 4 seed in the West. Have a top 4 seed overall is going to be tricky because, like you said, there's so much competition. I think that because of voter fatigue for Giannis, because of voter fatigue for James Harden, I think that you made some good points about Kawhi, LeBron / Anthony Davis. LeBron was making a case for himself. Maybe that's just like, I don't want to upset LeBron again. Maybe I should vote for him this time. Probably.
It could be. You could see a lot of votes like that, yeah, for sure. Especially if he plays upwards of 70 games and averages, you're 25, you're like almost triple double numbers with 25 points. That's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to rip LeBron to rip that MVP trophy from him because a lot of voters will be like, he's put up similar, if not same numbers as last year. And, we gave it to Giannis last year and he wasn't that good. But I think you'll see a lot of votes swing that way, actually. That's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, to finish off, I don't think it's premature because his talents alone, he is a top 5, top 6, top 7 player, and he's going to get better. This was his second season. And I think that he has great attention. He's incredibly popular with fans and media alike. So I think that because of the new shiny toy thing, as a sort of a narrative around him, I think people are going to want to vote for Luka. And if the Mavs win 50 games plus, even if they're not a top 4 seed, like we sort of alluded to and made good points about, I think they're still going to want to vote for him because he's just like
the new face, also the new rise of the new NBA. Like I can see, and it's all narrative, isn't it? Like I can definitely see some votes there. I just don't think the Mavs will be quite good enough to swing enough voters.
I think that's the key thing, like you mentioned, Nick. But I mean, the key thing for both of us is that Luka Doncic is cute, so you deserve an MVP
100%.
vote.
He's cuteness MVP every year. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
God damn. Yeah.
I certainly look forward to watching him play. I mean, watching these highlights is just getting me giddy. Oh,
absolutely.
God. He's so dynamic.
Can't wait for basketball to be back, mate. Let's stick with the Mavs. And let's get to ESPN, who had some thoughts about his teammate and whether they should be worried about his short and long-term future.
All right. You've sprung the video on me. Hold on. Let me get it up.
Well, it's almost there, and it's about to come. Nick, there we go.
Anyway, one team that's on the rise who's looking to challenge the Lakers, we spent a lot of time talking about the Lakers in the last segment, is the Dallas Mavericks. However, the health of one of their stars is again in question. Kristaps Porzingis had surgery to repair a meniscus tear in his right knee. Sources told ESPN's Tim McMahon the Mavs are optimistic that they'll have Porzingis back for training camp, although the start date is uncertain due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So, Brian, how concerned should Mavs fans be about Kristaps Porzingis?
How concerned are you about Kristaps Porzingis' injury? Oh, I guess not injury, but
they
surgery.
Should be concerned, as Brian Windhorst just said there, Nicholas. Look, if you want to, while I'm having a bit of a spiel, Nick, this is where you do your thing on B-Ball Ref and look at his games played across his career, across his short career. As a guy who is 7 foot above, who has had lower body injuries, that's worrisome. For a guy who you want to be your second best player, you want to be durable, you want to play 65 games and long 7-game series where the physicality is up. It just gets so much harder for players, let alone guys of his ilk. I remember him saying, I think in interviews with reporters, the team training stuff were like, look, we want you to be it this way because we think it'll hold you in better stead going forward. But then he's like, I don't feel as comfortable playing basketball with that level of weight on me. So it's going to be a balancing act, I think. I think that if he can play 65, 70 games next season, that's a tick. And you have him peaking late season, that's a tick. But I honestly do think, Nick, that this is going to be an ongoing thing for him. We know with Joel Embiid, we know, and obviously he came into the league, with injuries behind him. Kristaps is sort of, because he's such a unicorn, as Kevin Durant coined. He's always going to have that around him because the basic premise is if you suffer an injury, you're more likely to injure that place again. You sprain an ankle, you're probably going to sprain that ankle again. You injure your knee, you're probably going to injure that knee in some form again. Or you're going to compensate with the muscles around it. Both of us have experienced our level of injuries, and obviously it's an amateur, but it doesn't necessarily take away from the fact that that's what happens. Like when I sprain my ankle, I put more weight on my other foot, and then I accidentally sprain that ankle. Kristaps is going to have to be incredibly careful with his body going forward. I think the Mavs, I obviously brought up, Giannis today would be an absolute home run, but a third option to ease the burden off Kristaps, where you can rest him some games, you can load manage him in a way of Kawhi Leonard for the next sort of 5-10 seasons. He is very young, so it's not to say that he can't be durable long term, but he's not a guy that you're going to want to be playing 82 games a season. Get him in good shape, get him at the right weights, play him in the right games, rest him on the back-to-backs, whatever you got to do, because he is key to their success going forward. Because as a duo, as a dynamic, we saw in games where Luka was out, Kristaps was stepping up big time. So I think that they've got a great organization in Dallas to manage him going forward, but it doesn't mean I'm any less worried, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, the last few seasons for Kristaps has been a little bit dire. Obviously, 72 games in that first season with the Knicks, and he was, it was amazing. It was amazing.
We saw him play in his rookie year. That was the game where...
I think we did, yeah. 2015-16, man, it feels like such a long time ago. I guess it is. 66 the next season, 48 and 57 this season. So... Not looking good. 57 in a
shortened season, I guess.
57 in a shortened season, it was okay.
So if you add 10 games onto that, it's like 67.
But he missed the majority of last season, like the end of last season, and then the start of this season. It was a bad injury. Like it was an ACL, I believe. Yeah.
That's what the trade that they made was, ACL, coming back from that, and he's obviously still experiencing issues with the legs and the knees and everything else. We saw him with the biggest crutches I've ever goddamn seen. If you want to find that picture, Nick, I don't know if you've got it. I don't actually. I should have put that on the doc. I've put you on the spot a little bit. You don't have to find it. But in saying that, I just think that it's going to be a struggle for the Mavs to maintain and manage their 7'3" superstar, as talented and as great as he is, alongside Luka. Luka, we know, is durable. He proved that this season. He's playing extended minutes. He got his body into good shape. I think Luka's going to be a guy that you can rely on night after night after night, and he's also a hoop head. He wants to get out there. He's competitive as hell. Not saying that Kristaps isn't, but they're going to have to rein him in and say, tonight's not the night, young fella. We need you, in June, July, when it really matters, or whenever the playoffs goddamn start next year. So yeah,
if you want Luka Doncic winning that MVP, then you need Porzingis in that team for at least 70-80% of those games.
Yep,
and that's
no doubt.
It's simple maths, quick maths.
2 + 2 is 4. -1, that's 3.
Quick maths.
Quick maths indeed, sir. Nick, we have our final topic. It's the one in the highlighted blue. We'll get to our favorite talking head, the one that tells us to stay off the weed. He has some stuff to say about the Golden State Warriors.
it will be the Golden State Warriors standing in the way of the Los Angeles Lakers. With Klay Thompson and Steph Curry coming back, they've got a top pick in the draft. Draymond is there as well. I definitely think if Klay Thompson and Steph Curry are healthy, look the hell out. They will at the very least be in the conference finals. I ain't sleeping on the Golden State Warriors at all. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Steph Curry and Klay Thompson are the greatest shooting, or is the greatest shooting backcourt in the history of mankind. There has never been a backcourt that can shoot like these two brothers together, period.
Oh, God, I love him. I love him.
The
The,
thing is,
history of mankind. The
thing is, he's
hyperbole.
making
is
something
great.
that is like so blatantly obvious sound like it's an extravagant opinion. Like, no shit, Steve. Like, we get it. We know that these two are the greatest shooters ever. You don't need to make it seem like it's, oh, wow, Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson are the greatest shooters ever? I never knew that.
Yeah.
But, Nick, let's get back to the topic overall that he did bring up. Golden State will be the Lakers' biggest challenger out west next season. As of Sunday, October 18, 2:11 p.m. as we record this. Obviously, subject to change.
That's right. That's right.
Change our opinions consistently. What do you think about the Golden State Warriors narrative? What do you think their merits to contending next season?
I think they're high. I think they should be high. I don't think that they're number 2 in the West. Maybe I am sleeping on these guys a little bit, but you know, each year that these guys are sort of not playing, it's not like they're going to get better. It's not like we're going to see Klay Thompson and Steph Curry and Draymond Green suddenly get better.
Eric Pascal, baby.
Eric Pascal, I mean, he was good. He was good.
Yeah, pretty good.
If these guys can come back and play and you know, do the things that they're great at, if Steve Kerr can come in and incorporate the new draft pick, they've obviously got quite a high draft pick. They've got the previous draft picks that they had. That's right.
Wiggy.
Yeah, they do have Wiggy as well. Forgot about him. Jeez, he's a very forgettable man. Are they the biggest challenges out west? No, I don't think so. I think that crown will either go to the Clippers or the Nugs.
Oh, look at Nick giving the Nuggets.
Yeah, I know. I'm giving the Nuggets some Jamal Murray, man. I'm a changed man. I am I'm reformed. But yeah, they certainly will be they'll be in the playoffs for sure. I am not ready to put them top 4. I'm probably putting them in maybe the same ilk as the Mavs. Like, They could hit top 4. They could not. And of course, I could probably eat my own words when they come out firing and they look like the Golden State Warriors of old, you know?
You're sounding like the first season of the podcast where we have to eat each other's faces.
So we'll eat each other's faces, yeah. Yeah, so maybe I am sleeping on the Warriors. Maybe I'm forgetting and how good the Warriors were with just these pieces. I'm not going to know until we start watching them again, because obviously the last time that these guys played competitive basketball, KD was on the team.
Yeah,
you know, and that literally seems like an age ago. Coming off the serious injuries that Klay Thompson has suffered, and you know,
ACL.
And exactly, and Steph's wrists as well, and his knees are not exactly in the best shape.
Ankles.
Ankles. Draymond is more or less like Rondo. We see regular season Draymond. Are we going to see regular season Draymond? If so, then they probably won't finish top 4. He needs to be engaged from the off. So I don't think I think this is too soon to say that they are the best challenger, considering we've seen proven results from Nuggets, and I expect great things from the Clippers as well. So I think they take that mantle.
Yeah, the thing I'm fascinated with is, Nick, what happens with that draft pick? What do they do with it? Do they draft a James Wiseman and Anthony Edwards and LaMelo if he does happen to fall to number 2? Or, as I would think, they trade out of it, try and add a win-now player to impact them going forward. I don't think it's going to be Giannis. I think a lot of Warriors fans want that to happen. But they have a lot of options. And that plays well in Bob Myers and Steve Kerr's favor. this isn't going to be the 2015 Warriors that win 60, 70, 75 games.
That's right. No, yeah.
Because they're, like you mentioned, Nick, Klay Thompson coming off one of the most serious injuries. Stephen Curry, mid 30s. These guys are getting older. They're not in their primes. They are post-prime, or maybe like clean to their primes. We know Draymond Green. I would discount a lot of this season's play because of I think Draymond needs to be engaged. He needs to have something to play for, to play like the Draymond that we know and love. And I think, he's probably mentioned that himself when he's been on TNT and on Twitter. Great little follow on Twitter as well. But in saying that, I give it a Twitter, Nick, because it's like discounting LeBron James. You don't want to discount the champions. The champions are the champions for a reason. And whether Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Steve Kerr, that organization as a whole, Bob Myers, it's going to... I just think that, obviously Bogut and Iguodala and all these other guys that you add in around the wings, I think that's going to be incredibly important because the depth and talent in the West right now, I like the comparison point you made to the Dallas Mavericks because Dallas is up here, whereas Golden State's here and they're going down that way. For those that are not watching on YouTube, you need to be. OTG basketball off the glass. My hands are up here. I'm using them for a reason. So I think that's a fascinating storyline, and I think that I might have to put it out as a poll on Twitter, whether it's from at the J-Man JBT. Oh, it's right there. Or put it out OTG basketball. So I'll throw it at you just to end it, Nick, because we might get some sound bites out of this one. Dallas Mavericks or Golden State Warriors? Who do you think finishes with a better record next season? And who do you think finishes with more MVP votes out of Steph and Luka?
I think Luka finishes with more MVP votes. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to pip them as being higher.
Yeah.
I don't know. My instant reaction was to say Mavs will finish higher than the Golden State Warriors. But I feel dirty. I just feel unclean.
I'm a shell,
saying that. The hair is greasy. Yeah, I don't feel right saying that, but that's my instant reaction. So I guess that's what I'm going to say. I'll say Mavs, but I don't feel good about it.
I respect it. You're a takesman, and the world needs more takesmen, especially on podcasts. I'm normally a person who sits on the fence and goes with the tried and true. So I'm going to go with the Golden State Warriors because I think that they have a semblance to get back to a team. I just think that their ceiling is higher next season than what the Mavs is. Obviously, Luka can drag that team to immense talents, but Luka and Kristaps, we discussed the worries around Kristaps as well. I just think with Steph, Klay, and Draymond, that's the best big three since Miami and the most dynamic big three we've ever seen. The greatest regular season team in history was with the crux of those three players. So maybe I'm living in the past. Maybe it's because I'm getting old, Nick. I'm turning 30 soon. Maybe that's me. Maybe I'm the guy who needs to come with the new hip people and like Luka and Kristaps, all these sort of guys. So I like it when we differ in opinions. So yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see. And I think that, come February next year, well, maybe let's go with like June when the regular season's over. It'll be interesting to see if our opinions have changed.
Yeah, that's right. You can always quote us on previous episodes. Oh, look, he said that. I've certainly had egg on my face many times with my crazy predictions. But that's just who I am. It's just you take it or leave it. That's right. All right. I think that just about does it for another week. So we'd just like to say thank you for tuning in to Just Ball Things. You can catch us, as always, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Player FM, Spreaker, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to your podcast. We are obviously also available on the YouTube. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, OTG Basketball. Give them, that's where we're on the YouTubes, OTG Basketball. So remember, it's you guys that make the show great, so we appreciate any and every post heading our way. So until next week,
keep ballin', superstars.